Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
We pray that Adonai our God has compassion for Brad, for Mindy and Jim, and for all the family and friends of Rona Stern who we come here to remember this day. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are but dust. Our days are like grass. We flourish the flowers of the field. A wind passes over us, and we are no more. But we trust that Adonai's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children endures age after age, unchanging. We begin our service by reciting Psalms, thus linking Rona's life to our ancient tradition, to the Jewish people, and to the eternity of God.
Psalm 121, a song for ascents. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from evil and will guard your soul. Adonai guards your going and coming, now and forever. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binodeshe yaritzeni, amei menuchot nahaleni. Nafshi yishovev, anchini b'madlei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet, lo irara ki atah imadi. Shiftecha mishantecha hema yenachamoni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai. Dishanta v'shem en roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. Those were the Hebrew words of Psalm 23, also known as the Shepherd's Psalm. A psalm that offers us words of comfort during difficult moments such as this one. I'll ask that you join with me in the English translation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
This Shabbat, this coming Shabbat in the synagogue, we will complete the reading of the book of Genesis, the biblical book of beginnings. And there in that book we learn also of the end of life. And we see that at the time of people passing, it is members of the family who come forward to speak words of eulogy, words of memory. So in keeping with that tradition and extending it, we're going to hear today first from Brad, and then from Mindy, and then from friends as well, Deb Jacobson, Sue Greenberg, and Peter Goodman. Brad?
Surreal. It shouldn't be happening. We should all not be here today. Rona died too soon. Life is fragile and not fair. I've lost my wife, my lover, my best friend, my partner, my comforter, my caregiver, my travel mate, my everything. I have a hole in my soul that will never heal. I will carry on, but diminished. I will miss her laughter, her beauty, her smile, her intellect, her wisdom, her counsel, the warmth of her body, the softness of her skin, the tenderness of her lips, the squeeze of her hand, the skills of her cooking and handicraft, the tenaciousness of her efficiency and organization. I will miss her declaring me a complete idiot, which wasn't all that infrequent. But enough about me. That all of you are here physically and virtually is testament to the love Rona gave and the love she received. She was easy to talk to and exuded empathy and warmth. Rona would meet people, and after a few minutes of chat, they would open up to her about their woes and troubles. It was amazing. She was that intuitive and a consummate listener. Everyone has a memory of Rona's love and kind-heartedness. I will ask and rely on others to share their memories, to cherish and keep those memories. Think of her and help me to keep her spirit alive and in their hearts. Rona touched the lives of many people. She deserves nothing less. Yet, she was a damaged soul. As many of you may know, she lost her father at an early age, and her sister Joyce, almost 5 years her senior, at age 38 in 1984, to an aggressive breast cancer. Rona worshipped her big sister, who looked after her and protected her. When their mom Ruth was at the retail menswear store, she had no choice but to run to provide for her daughters after Ruth's husband died of a massive heart attack in his sleep at around 50 years old. Joyce's death devastated Rona, and the wounds remained open. I'm sure she will find closure now that she's in heaven with her sister and her family, and that will bring Rona the peace that she desperately longed for. I will confess we had our share of disagreements. I'm sorry to report that our verbal tips could be rather nasty. She couldn't stand my yelling. That really pushed her buttons. But we had a hard and fast rule. We never went to sleep mad. We worked things through, and no matter what, we made sure we said we loved each other, which we did every night of the 48 plus years that we were married. My big regret is that I didn't tell her I love her enough. If you'll permit me, I'll share with you a little levity involving two incidents totaling a grand total of 2 cents. The first penny incident occurred in 1972 or so at Ruth's menswear store. Rona was in charge of the cash register that day. We were there and handled the transactions run through it. She zeted out at the end of the day and was 1 penny shy. Ruth and I were tired and wanted to go home, but Rona was determined to find that 1 penny. We could not let her to just let it go. Ruth offered her a penny to put in the cash drawer, but that wasn't good enough. I think we were there for at least a half an hour while she tried to balance the register for the sake of 1 penny. I don't remember whether she found it or not. The second penny incident involved our checkbook, sometime in the 1980s. Rona balanced it one month only to find that she was 1 penny off. She got apoplectic. I said it was all right. We'll survive. But she was having none of that. She discovered that the first check entry for the month was the problem. I said, great, you'll just do an adjusting entry for 1 entry and we'll move on. She corrected the erroneous entry and every one thereafter until it reconciled to the bank statement. You see, there's no such thing in Rona's world as an insignificant figure. If the Pentagon had hired her, she would have no doubt saved them 10% on their annual budget by eliminating inefficiency and disorganization. She also would have won every dishwashing stuffing contest if there ever was one. I will close with a song from Rona. The same song I sang to her at her 50th birthday party we hosted at the Camden, New Jersey Aquarium in 2001. It goes like this, and I'm sure some of you know it. Got a good reason for loving you. It's an old-fashioned sign. Kinda got the feeling that you know when I fell in love the first time. Kind woman, won't you love me tonight? The look in your eyes, kind woman, don't leave me lonely tonight. Please say it's all right. Rest in peace, my love. This is not a goodbye. I will look for you and I will find you when I'm on the other side.
Mindy?
Rona used to refer to me sometimes as Brad's little sister. The translation of that is following in his footsteps. So good luck to me following that. The author, Mitch Albom, has noted that death ends a life, but not a relationship. Everyone here should take comfort in that. How do you sum up a person's life and define what makes that life well lived in just a few short words? This is confounding to me, but I'm going to give it a try. While in the hospital with Brad on Rona's last day, I listened as a steady stream of friends and family members on the other end of Brad's mobile phone said their goodbyes to Rona. I was touched beyond words by how many said what a dear, special person she was, how loving, how much they relied on her for love and laughter, for being their best friend, their wonderful friend, lamenting the loss of one more chance to be together, how grateful they were to have her in their life. Thank you so much to everyone who did this. It was really touching and very, very meaningful to Brad. Your outpouring made me think of the Wizard of Oz telling the Tin Man, a heart is judged not by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others. Rona's vast and much admired collection of elephants is bested only by the collection of friends she accumulated over the years. There is not enough storage space in her phone for the contact information for all of them. And everyone was fair game, even my high school boyfriend. And our COVID puppy adored Rona, had a special relationship with her from the very first meeting. She always made a beeline for Rona's nose and couldn't lick it enough. For myself, the words that come to mind when I think of Rona are kind, generous, empathetic, and smart, with a fierce devotion to and appreciation for family. Of course, it's impossible to talk about Rona without talking about Brad. Years ago, I dubbed them B and R for obvious reasons. Not all couples are lucky enough to share the special joined at the hip relationship they had at all, let alone for 50 years, 48 of them married. Looking back at it now, their 70s era wedding was a hoot. Except for Rona's beautiful and very traditional wedding dress, the rest of us, including Brad, came out of a time capsule of central casting. Long hair, sideburns, brocade tuxedos, and cowboy boots for the men. And even longer, or poofy, over-the-top florals and geometric print dresses and shoulder pads for the ladies. Our father embraced Rona immediately in his gentle giant teddy bear hug way. Mom took a little longer. Initially, she was shell-shocked that her 20-year-old son wanted to get married and worried it would derail Brad from graduating from college in an era when people were dropping acid and dropping out. Not only did that not happen, but Mom eventually realized how good Rona was for Brad and to Brad, how much Rona loved Brad, and vice versa. Mom came to regard Rona as a second daughter, to rely on her for her military precision organizational skills, her tech savvy, and most of all, her emotional support. They sometimes often drove each other crazy, but they also really loved one another through and through. Those organizational skills were on full display in her kitchen, and note that I said her kitchen, not their kitchen. That's how Rona always referred to it, as her kitchen. When I was at their home for dinner parties, I was privileged to be one of the few people, and often the only person, allowed in her kitchen. This was because I was one of those people who never second-guessed anything she said or did. I took orders like a trooper, and my cleaning skills were up to her high standards. It was a privilege to be her sidekick in those days. Brad and Rona, B&R, met at the bridge table. One of the silver linings of COVID was the many online bridge games that Jim and I played with B&R, and when finally safe to do so, in person too. It will probably surprise no one here to learn that although B&R begrudgingly, occasionally, agreed to switch partners, the girls against the boys, the siblings against the in-laws, they much preferred to play with each other as partners. I'm the newbie in the bridge group, Jim having played since he was a child, Brad and Rona having played since college, me just 12 years. I always appreciated Rona's gentle approach to teaching moments. She never said, "You idiot, why did you lead a club?" Or, "How could you not remember the Queen of Spades was played 3 tricks ago?" No, it was always a gentle, respectful, "If you're receptive to it, I could tell you what you might have done to set them or to get another trick." Always the teacher. Our most recent bridge game was Thanksgiving Day. Who knew it was going to be our last? If Rona could talk to me when we were in the hospital on Monday, I know she would have made me promise to take care of her Brad. Rona, I will never be as good at that as you were, but I'll just do my best. We all love you. We'll never forget you. You lost your life, but we have not lost our relationship. Rest in peace, my dear sister-in-law.
Deb Jacobson.
Well, Rona always referred to me as, when she introduced me to other people later in her life, that I was her crib mate, that we knew each other from the time we were born. And that's because our moms knew each other before we were born. And Rona was born 2 months before me. And Rona remembers being in the crib together. Of course, she was 2 months older. I don't remember that. My first recollection with her was in kindergarten, but I'll get to that in a minute. So, when Brad asked me to say a few words about Rona's early years, I thought, well, I'm qualified to do that. And then I thought about it and I said, you know, when I reflected, boy, there were some years that were total voids. I didn't see Rona at all. And over the 70 plus years that we were together, we never had an argument ever in 70 years. We never fought, never had an argument. The times that we weren't together, I asked other childhood friends to recall what they remembered, so I'll share that with you as well. So during that reflection, I realized it's not the time that we spent together, it's the values of that friendship. And what was so important were the things like knowing that you'll always be there for somebody, Didn't matter that we spent all of high school and didn't have activities in common or maybe even some friends in common, but we always knew we were there for each other, that we could always depend on each other, that we really cared about each other. What great values to have. And that made me think about our moms, because our moms helped to shape our lives. And our moms are always there for us. Even though they had losses in their life and suffered early, they were always there for us when it mattered. They cared about us. We knew that. And that made life a whole lot sweeter and a whole lot more comfortable. So, I don't want to talk about the tragic parts. I want to talk about just some times that we experienced joy in our early childhood. So, first major event I remember is kindergarten. And Rona was elected Queen of the May for May 1st. And I was so happy for her, because Rona wasn't really about how she looked or what she had, or she was just always happy with what she had. Laughing, crying, very emotional, but always happy with what she had. So that Queen of the May in kindergarten, when she had this beautiful outfit on and looked so beautiful, was a big honor. And every year on May 1st, for our whole lives, I would call her and wish her Happy May Day to the Queen of the May. The next major joyous event was our dance classes. Our moms enrolled us together. We took ballet and tap. We were maybe 4 to 6 years old. I was always concerned about the outfit and how I looked, and did I remember the steps, and Rona was there just to dance. Didn't much matter what we looked like. Her mom would make us the costumes. She would sew, buy the fabric, sew all our little outfits. Her mom, again, cared about us, even though she was running a business and couldn't be there all the time after school, perhaps. She was there for that. When we needed her, she was there for the good times. And then there were the piano times at home with Rona and her mom. Her mom would play all the show tunes on the piano. She knew them all by heart. She would sing. Rona and I would be there dancing in the background. I remember smiles. Her mom smiles all the time. She'd be playing, she'd be smiling with a big grin, and so would Rona. Wonderful times. And then we had collections. We had button collections. Very important to us at that young age. I don't know what we did with the buttons. I don't know why we collected them. I don't know that we ever did anything with them, but we had them and they were very important to us. Then there were the charm collections from the gumball machines. You put your money in, you cranked it, you get gum, but if you got a charm, that was the big prize. I don't know why we needed that. I don't know what we did with them, but they were very important. And if you got the man in the bathtub charm, you knew your life was complete. You had that one. Then the touching part that affected my life was when we were in different grade schools. We were at the same school in kindergarten. I switched schools from the Driscoll School in Brookline, Mass. To the Devotion School in Brookline, Mass. I was so happy because Ron was the only person that I knew there. Big comfort. Big time for us to be together. Well, we had a project due, We worked on a diorama together from Greek history or something. We did it together, had a wonderful time, we practiced, and when the day came that we were going to give our big presentation, I wasn't feeling well. I was so distraught that I was going to let Rona down, that I couldn't be there. I was just beside myself. I thought it was going to be just the end of my world. Rona showed up, and I told her, she said, "Oh, no problem." She said, "We've gone over it so many times." She says, "No problem, take care of yourself." And that was a defining moment for me in our friendship. The things that some other good friends said about her, when I asked our other long-time friend, Kathy Sue Levine, about some joyous times she remembered with Rona, and she remembers in probably about 4th or 5th grade, they would go to another friend's house, and they would dress up in Wizard of Oz costumes, and they would act out the plays together. And she remembers a Sunday morning at girls' school through Kehilloth Israel Synagogue. And in probably 7th or 8th grade, she and Kathy were both in the school choir together, and that was something I wouldn't have even known. And then in high school, Kathy remembers walking home from school together, and because they were studying French in school, they would speak French just on the way home together. Our other good friend, Nancy Katzen, who could not be here today, but she's going to watch on live stream, remembers being very active in BBG, which was B'nai B'rith Girls, during high school years. And some of the house parties that they had, sometimes with the affiliated boys group from AZA, highlight there. And then there was a summer camp that was very important to Ron, which I think was called Witch Haven. So, qualities I want to keep in mind for Rona that helped me through life and will always live on: her generosity, her sensitivity. She was emotional, she could laugh, she could cry, it didn't matter. And caring. She really truly cared. She was dependable. She was always there for me. So I take away how important it is to be a good friend. We don't realize how we touch other people in our life. So be a good friend, because we all need each other. And I love Rona forever. I don't feel that she's gone. I feel that she's graduated and she's going to be with her family, and how joyous is that? Thank you.
Sue Greenberg.
It's with a heavy heart that I try to sum up. Already, you have to cry already. 40 years of a special friendship. Rona was a friend who was always there to listen and give advice when asked, but never judged. Rona and Brad came to New Jersey in 1982, and Bob, my husband, found her first job here. When they moved to Lakeview Drive, the companionship began in earnest. We spent numerous vacations together, and we never had to worry about taking pictures, since Brad was our professional photographer. Then there was the job of being a parent on call. There was the time Randy, my daughter, was in a car accident, and Bob and I weren't around. Rona was the one who came together and made sure she was fine. Then there was the time Bob and I were in North Carolina with Karen, our other daughter. Our house had been broken into on a Friday night. It was Rona and Brad who came to the rescue. As they looked around the house to see what was missing, Brad was angry that they had ransacked Randy's room and stolen her boombox. Randy looked at Rona and said, "Should I tell him?" And she sheepishly said, "They didn't ransack my room. This is how I left it." More recently, the relationship grew between Rona, Brad, and Karen. Karen became closer by being her daughter and her doctor, always being there for each other. Rona and Brad shared many holidays and family celebrations, like dance recitals, graduations, weddings, and babies, with us over the years. She was always there for me, helping in any way she could, even coming to Florida when I needed her to help me get through tough times. There will be an empty space in my heart, but my dear friend, I will always love you and miss you until we're together again.
Peter Goodman.
Rona, how could you leave us so soon? We have so many plans together. Symphys to come, trips to take together, plays to see, new restaurants to experience, and family gatherings for the holidays. It wouldn't be a family gathering without the Stearns. We met Ron and Brad decades ago, and they quickly became our close friends. They were everybody's close friends. Brad and our son Scott playing guitar together on the porch in Cape May, while Rona and Roseanne and I sang along. Trips to Jamaica together where the four of us would sit around the piano bar and sing in harmony, or at least we thought so. Outdoor concerts together in Camden on the lawn. And just a couple of months ago, we saw a particularly bad concert together, which I won't name to protect the truly awful. And we laughed about it the whole ride home. Can you tell that music is a common passion among so many things that we all share together? And Roseanne and Rona shared another passion, that of reading. They always traded hardcover books each had read, and then the more recent world of Kindle shared books they loved electronically. Roseanne referred to Rona as her guy friend, which made Rona smile. She was great with computers, TVs, anything electronic, and Roseanne often turned to her for assistance. To Roseanne and me and our family, Rona was a special person. Our sons and daughters-in-law and grandchildren became their family too. Our daughter-in-law Jamie told me yesterday that Rona was such a lovely person, and she'll miss her immensely. Our son Craig relied upon Rona and Brad for advice when he wanted another point of view. And whenever we were all together, my sons and daughters-in-law spent hours trading stories with Rona. One of Rona's favorite moments with Roseanne and me was the time and one of our trips to Israel that overlapped their trip. We had dinner together at the port in Tel Aviv on her birthday. The timing was perfect and Rona loved it. Sure sounds like family to me. Goodbye, sweet Rona. We will all miss you more than you can ever know.
I've already noted that this Shabbat in the synagogue, in our cycle of Torah, we will complete the book of Bereshit, the biblical book of beginnings. The last parsha relates the passing of the patriarch Jacob and the passing of Joseph as well. But the title of the portion does not mention death. Instead, it is derived from the opening words of the text, Vayechi. He lived. A similar phenomenon occurs in the portion which tells of the passing of the matriarch Sarah, which is titled Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah, or more literally, the lives of Sarah. Commenting on that literal translation, Rashi notes that Sarah's life was lived in stages: youth, middle years, later years, and yet there were characteristics that she exhibited consistently from stage to stage of her life. And so it is with the life of Rona Stern, Chaye Rona. We can discern stages in the loving words that we have just heard, stages based on education, career, marriage. Most importantly, we can see the consistency of character: kind, smart, generous, caring, warm, empathetic, loving. Those are all words that we've heard from those who've spoken. And it's those characteristics which bring here today friends from all the stages of Rona's life. She made deep and lasting friendships, she retained those relationships, and she kept it going from stage to stage. Yesterday I had the opportunity to talk with Deb Jacobson, who has already spoken about her early years, but what Deb didn't tell you is that she flew in from California to be here today. That's friendship. And there are people here, friends from other distant places as well. Everybody lives life in stages. Everybody has memories from those earliest years, but not everybody retains those close friendships through the years, and Rona did, from stage to stage, which, borrowing from the language of Torah, we would then call Chaye Rona. Other relationships from those early years have been mentioned, and perhaps the most meaningful, that with her sister Joyce, whom she lost when Joyce passed away so young. And she carried Joyce with her every day of her life. Now here I want to pause to note another aspect of that Hebrew word for life. The word chaim in Hebrew, from which chaye comes, is a plural. In Hebrew, there is no singular noun for life. It is always plural, as if to say life to be lived most meaningfully, most fully, must be lived in relationship to others. Family, friends, close relationships that last from stage to stage. Chaim, life in the plural, and that's the way that Rona lived it. And that's something that all of you remember about her. So now let me go back to one of those stages, college. This stage might well be labeled meeting Brad, but then we would miss the fact that Rona was already a junior at Clark University when Brad arrived as a freshman. Clearly for Brad, however, college begins with Rona. Because in speaking to you, Brad, you said you don't remember going to classes as a freshman. However, he recalls perfectly the first time he met Rona, which was in the student union. Her arm was in a sling, You never said why, no matter, because it didn't stop her from playing bridge, and that's what brought you together. As you grew, you became partners with all that implies in the context of bridge. Then when you were a sophomore, Brad and Rona was a senior, it became what you referred to as a relationship. And then you started talking about marriage, casual discussion, as you explained, no formal proposal on one knee or anything like that. And then when Rona graduated, you were engaged. And that, as you explained it, Brad, was college. Along with perhaps an occasional smoke, we won't say what, and some music, and lots of bridge. Two additional items. Rona majored in psych and math, and in addition to meeting you in the Student Union, there was also where she met Shiba, a pup and a box of dogs that tried to climb up her arm and became your pet from 1972 to 1986. Of course, Rona lived in a dorm and Brad had an apartment, so the dog first resided with Brad, something you shared along with that duplicate bridge for the years. A lasting love for each other, most important of all. And as you noted, married in 1973, a marriage of 48 years. When I hear numbers like that, I always reflect back on the blessings we recite when a couple are married in Jewish tradition. There are 7 of them. One we mentioned twice. We pray that they become Re'im Ahuvim, beloved companions. 48 years in which you've seen each other from stage to stage of career, shared travel to so many places, made so many lasting friendships, in which you, Brad, ascribe mostly to Rona, but clearly you have a lot to do with it as well. 48 years as Re'im Ahuvim, beloved companions, life in the plural, blessing fulfilled. We trace the stages of Rona's career. Her work as a substitute teacher while you finished college, Brad, her getting a master's degree at Assumption College, studying at night while teaching, her position as a school psychologist, at which you explained she was very successful because of her empathetic nature. When funding for that position, which was funded by CETA, the Comprehensive Education Training Act, that Brad made sure that I have every word of that. He has an attention to detail too. But when that came to an end, a duplicate bridge tournament brought you into meeting a vice president of Digital Equipment Corporation and then a position at DEC. More friendships made there. Then from DEC, Rona went to Prime Computer. And all of this was in the early days of the computer industry, which was centered in Massachusetts because of everybody coming out of MIT. This was before Silicon Valley became the center. Rona was learning skills that made her a valued employee. And more, in every place she was making those friendships, those lasting friendships, reflected in the people here today and on live stream from those years in Massachusetts. Chaim, life in the plural. It was a change in Brad's work that brought them to Philadelphia and a home in the Society Hill condos in Cherry Hill. Again, new friendships made. Hallie Friedman, Jeff and Jody Nash, others. Meeting Bob and Sue Greenberg made the connection that got Rona a job in IT at Lowenthal and Harworth, and that's where she met Eric Jacobs, and that brought Rona and Brad to TBS, which is why we are here today. More. The friendship with Eric and Carolyn led to a whole new group of friends called the Fubsies. Somebody can explain that name later. I'm not going to do it now. But a group that included the Attinsons and the Simons and the Abramowitzes, and TBS meant others, Peter and Roseanne, and so it goes. Chaim, life in the plural. Rona learned the cyborg system at Lowenthal and Harworth, and so when that firm dissolved, she took a position with Cyborg itself and spent the rest of her career with them as a consultant on the legacy and COBOL systems. She was really an expert, and they kept her, and she at times thought of leaving, but they insisted that she stay. She became a consultant for them, traveled widely in order to support those systems, and made many friends along the way through those business trips. And as it was said, Rona could meet somebody and in 5 minutes, her caring warmth, sincere interest forged a relationship that would last a lifetime. She was the type of person who, when she asked, "How are you?" really meant it. And she was a good listener, so people poured out their stories to her. She was an empath. And she maintained those friendships. She stayed in touch. And so they grew and they deepened. Chaim, life in the plural, at every stage. And along the way, Brad and Rona started to travel, and I mean really travel. London, to which they flew on the Concorde because of all of Rona's accumulated miles from work. Europe, the Arctic, China, Japan, Australia, South America, Africa, a couple of safaris, and of course Israel, a trip we shared in 2018, and there are friends here from that trip as well. Friendships from every trip. Friendships from Swept Away, your island retreat in Jamaica, to which you returned again and again. Friendships with the group you call the music people. And all of the friends and family know of Rona's interests, her avid reading, the novels of all sorts that she enjoyed, which you said ranged from trashy novels to New York Times bestsellers. Sometimes, by the way, they're the same. Her collection of elephants, which you quickly explained to me was not the real animal, but memorabilia. Her needlepoint, her concern for details. She could tell you where every piece in the house came from, especially if it was a gift from a family or friends, because friends were like family for Rona, and we've heard that emphasized again and again. In fact, friends were family, since her actual family she lost. Her mother Ruth, her father Edmund, her beloved sister Joyce were gone, but friends became family. And she kept up the relationship with Joyce's children, with Emily and Jonathan, and through Brad's sister, Mindy, and Jim, Tom, and Rob became part of her life. Ron was meticulous in everything that she did, and most of all, in maintaining those ties that she cared about so much. The ties to all of you. Chaim, life in the plural. At the end of the book of Genesis, as we conclude the reading of that last portion about life and the end of life, as we do with every book of Torah, which we conclude in the synagogue, we will rise to recite Chazak Chazak v'nit Chazek. Be strong, and let us be strengthened. Or, translated differently, be strong, and let us strengthen each other. And so too, at the conclusion of a life that was lived with so many meaningful relationships, all of us wish that Rona would have had many more years. But because of the way that she lived, and those deep and loving friendships, her love for family, you will find strength in the memories that you share. Brad, Mindy, Jim, all of you will find strength in each other. And in that way, Rona's memory will be a blessing for all the days and the years to come. We rise for a final prayer.
Has to
צרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה. ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Rona Stern, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. You may be seated. From here, we'll head to Locust Wood Memorial Park for the interment, and then Brad will be sitting Shiva at his home, 22 Lakeview Hollow in Cherry Hill, and there'll be Shiva Minyanim there tonight, Thursday night, and Sunday evening at 7:30 p.m.
Will the pallbearers please step to the center aisle? And I'll ask if we can rise once more for these.
A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time for planting and a time for uprooting, a time for hurting and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up. A time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for crying and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time for shunning embraces. A time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for letting go, a time for ripping and a time for sewing, a time for speaking and a time for silence.
Seated, please. I'll ask you to kindly remain seated, please, just for a moment. Folks in these two rows, if we can get there in the left part, please.
But,